Yeah.
Welcome to He Did This to Me, the sports podcast from a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Mets, and Jets fans. My name is Nick, a.k.a. Goody, and with me is my old man, a.k.a. the big guy, Noel. And just like his name, all we do is win. Let's get to the show. It's time to begin. Off the top, I would like to issue a personal public apology to Mr. Thomas Joseph Thibodeau Jr. After game 2, I absolutely killed Tibbs. I crushed him for many things, and I begged him to run more offensive sets, to force feed Cat the rock, to give Brunson a blow in the second half, to run more plays for OG and Bridges, to make Brunson facilitate, to give Campaign a few more minutes, to play Cat and Mitch more together. And he did every single one of those things. The Knicks get the win, 118-116. The game was not even that close. I felt like the Knicks really controlled the game. In fact, they led for 44 minutes and 3 seconds out of the 48. They closed the half on a 25-8 run, and the Knicks got the dub, and they now lead the series against the Pistons 2-1. Talk to me, big guy. How are you feeling about our Knicks?
Well, I'm getting kind of embarrassed because, frankly, because of you. I mean, how many times is this now you're going to apologize to Tibbs for asking for the man's job?
Everything's fluid. It's from game to game.
Right, exactly.
I don't take back that I thought in game 2 he did a terrible job. I thought he did a terrible job.
But you're ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
It's been building all year. It's been building.
Oh, but Nick, you a couple of weeks ago, you were saying Delon Wright should take all of Cam's minutes. And then after that first game, you were talking about getting a Campaign jersey.
I know.
I've acknowledged
this much. No, well, listen, man. If Campaign, if you want to come in and score 11 points in the fourth quarter and bring the Knicks back and lead us to a 21-0 run for the biggest comeback and the greatest run in Knicks playoff history, then yeah, I'm gonna be hype on you after that. I saw something. There's still a part of me that feels like maybe DeLon Wright, especially with Deuce playing the way he is. We'll get back to that, but especially with Deuce playing the way he is, there is still a part of me that kind of feels that way now. But listen, hey, Campaign did his thing. I am definitely hyperbolic and up and down and all over the place. I did not think that Tibbs had a very good game too. All those things that I talked about, all those things that I mentioned, but I did say in my Nic On Knicks episode where I went over that, that's the other podcast that I do by myself where I talk about the latest Knicks news. Check it out. I did say that, hey, I'm hoping that there is a possibility that Tibbs is going to come out and address some of these things. And what we saw from the very beginning of this game was the Knicks team that we saw more so at the beginning of the season. We moved the ball. We distributed it to everybody. We had 4 guys score over 20 points. Jalen came out with the mindset from the beginning that he had to facilitate, which led to 9 assists. I think he could have even had more if some guys would have hit some shots. And the Knicks were able to, even though it ends up only being 2 at the end, control this game throughout.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying to you, all right? Do we think that from one game to the next, Tibbs just forgets all of that and just decides not to call all of that? I think a lot of times, Nick, that a lot of things in the game are really left up to the guys on the floor. The concept is there, but it's not always a play called. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times, too, a lot of those plays are set up by good defense. I definitely think a lot of those offensive sets we see happen because we have a chance to get into our offense before they can get set in their defense. And I think a lot of it was mindset, Nick. It was all mindset. We weren't playing like this, constantly back on our heels. They were playing like that. Okay, and we got them playing like that from the very start of the game. And that makes a huge difference in every aspect of the game. I'm pretty convinced that if we any other game we don't come out with that kind of energy, we lose. But when we come out with that kind of energy, I see it as very difficult for us to lose. You know, we will win if we even if we're not prolific offensively, we'll win if we come out with the right defensive energy. I'm convinced of that against these guys.
There's definitely something to be said that when we are playing strong defense and we're creating turnovers and we play fast, our offense in general is better. We definitely had an emphasis to push the ball. To me, it's not always necessarily something that Tibbs can do, and it's something that the players have to do, but it's up to Tibbs to get them to do that. And clearly he made it very, very abundantly clear. And it's not even if he makes it clear, it's about whether or not he's able to inspire the guys to do what he's asking of them. And I feel like the edict that we had to play much tighter and much more up in them pause defense, and we had to push the ball and play with pace. That was something that it seemed you could see from the very beginning that the guys were definitely just focused on doing that and committed to doing that. Really, other than a stint in the third quarter, we continue to stick to that game plan. But people that are smarter than me, specifically my guys over on Hot Hand Theory, XJ and Jeff, they have broken down that we absolutely ran more set plays than we typically do. It was less of Brunson ball and everybody get out of the way. We force-fed Cat from the beginning. That was clearly a plan. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, I even noticed that the first two plays of the fourth quarter, we force-fed Cat. We did not say, hey, well, he's got 2 or 3 people on him. And then the other thing was Josh Hart, instead of just standing behind the 3-point line, was cutting and moving, which didn't allow them to take that one guy, park him in one spot, and stop Cat from catching the balls at the places that he likes to. There was, I forget what show it was, and I want to give him credit, but I saw somebody and they were showing how we ran a play in that game, which is like a Cat going through a double screen and catching it on the weak side, and it led to a Cat layup. We haven't run that play since December. It's something that we scrapped back then and just stopped running. And I don't know exactly why we didn't, but I just definitely, and I went and rewatched the game. I watched the game twice, and I saw us running more elaborate plays, not only for Cat, but for OG, and we were running actions to get Bridges involved. And I think that absolutely comes down to Tom Thibodeau and also Jalen Brunson as well. And again, one of the things I mentioned is he has to get through to Brunson and say, facilitate the ball. Brunson did that. He got the 9 assists. And I think that's one of the keys to this team moving forward is, listen, Brunson, we know the heroics. We know that you are the NBA clutch player of the year for a reason. We also know that we have a very good starting 5 with 4 guys who can give you 20 or 30 every single night. And when he starts off the game and then commits to being a facilitator throughout, and then at the end, when we need you to, just bring us home. I love that formula. And at the beginning of the year, remember we had Brunson, he was kind of struggling a little bit with when to facilitate and whatnot, and he kind of figured it out. I feel like sometimes in the second half of the season, we kind of went back to the old way, and it definitely felt that way. Even it's sometimes in game 1, but definitely in game 2, game 4, we moved the ball much better. And as we know, this Knicks team, if they get that 25, 30 assists, they're very hard to beat.
Yeah, and I hear you. I think, Nick, I think, like you say, it's very fluid. And when that game is going on, I'm sure Tom Thibodeau looks back at game 2 and says, I should have done this different. I should have done that different. And that's why he did some things different in game 3. And then
he made definite adjustments.
Right. But my point is that they're going to make adjustments now. So we're going to have to adjust again. Everything that they did right in game 3, we won't forget that. But we might not do it as well. We might not do it as much. There just might be adjustments made. And I don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. I hope it's going to be right, obviously. But the whole point to me, Nick, is that I think this team has a good core of players, good coaching staff, and all that. I think to do anything rash after the season, regardless of what happens with this series, would be extremely foolish and detrimental to the team. That's just my feeling. I don't think that. I think teams that constantly make decisions like that too knee-jerky end up paying for it and don't end up going anywhere and just swimming around. So I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully we get through the series. He builds more and more goodwill, but I understand that Knicks fans are quite fickle. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what
One
happens.
of the interesting graphics that I saw recently is it listed all the most recent NBA champions, and many of them, I think Mike Malone was one of the one of the ones that wasn't within this range, but it was like a lot of the teams who have won championships, they've in the last like 10, I don't know, maybe even longer than that first championship that they win with the new coach is within the first couple years, or like 3 years. Because I think a lot of times you get a team to a certain point, or there's just a lot of coaches out there who are like, this guy's good. He gets you out. He pulls you up out of the mud. But like, as I've said before, he can get you out of the basement, but can he get you to the top floor? And so I just feel like, right now, Tibbs made the adjustments, man. If he continues to make the adjustments, and some of these that I feel like are just so glaring, we're not rebounding enough. Okay, give me more Cat and Mitch minutes. What's the counter to Josh Hart just being left alone? Okay, Josh, we're going to need you to, first of all, make a hard cut, and then we're going to run action off of that, and then we're going to need you to continue to move so that guy can't just be stationary. I think all of these things, and then I even saw them use Josh Hart as like the screener on the weak side. I think all of those things are very good adjustments. They're the proper adjustments, and it led to us winning the game. Now, we only end up winning by 2. As I said, I feel like the game was, we controlled the game a lot more than that. Definitely some crazy circumstance at the end to get the game back. And one thing that I don't like that we continue to do in those situations and throughout the game, we just don't guard the 3-point line very well. We don't seem to put an emphasis on it. And when you're up by 6 with less than a minute to go, let them get layups. Just don't let them shoot threes. I don't understand why, it seems like either as a team from top to bottom, when it comes, Tibbs, players, whoever, we seem to not understand that concept, or at least not be able to execute it, which is very frustrating. But man, this game, it was fun to watch. It was chippy from the beginning. I think one of the biggest things that this Knicks team did was they didn't just match the physicality between the lines. They also, when these guys were trying to do, slick, dirty shit, when the ball is not even in play, they didn't have that either. I saw from Cat from the very beginning, obviously him and Paul Reed, he goes in, he steps up for Mitch. Paul Reed like pushed Mitch as hard as he can, and Mitch didn't move at all. And then Cat comes over and shoves him, and as he's walking back, he hits Mitch and says, "Yo, I got you," and everything. I think little things like that are huge. And I also, the guy who really surprised me, Dad, Bridges is out here chirping, going back and forth with Schroeder.
Bridges is a chirper. He talks a lot.
Look, I feel like
he talks to the opposing bench all the time.
Okay, he'll always look at the opposing bench and give the little like thing or whatever when they're yapping at him, but that's something that's pretty ubiquitous in today's league. Everybody does that. I don't see Bridges very often getting him back and forth where he has to be like separated and guys are like, getting chest to chest. I don't see him doing that very often, or really ever. And he did that a few times this game, both with Schroeder and then also with Tim Hardaway Jr. And he even looked at Tim Hardaway Sr. at one point and told him to shut the fuck up and sit down, which I loved.
Yeah, I know. I love it. Tim Hardaway Sr., I've never really been a big fan of that.
Well, of course. I mean, he's a huge player in the Miami Heat. I hated him as a kid. I hated that guy. He hit a lot of big shots against him.
Like, I disliked him much more than Alonzo Mourning. I didn't like Alonzo Mourning as a rival, as a someone playing against us, but I didn't think he was a jerk. I always thought that
I always thought so was a jerk. So with the staring and standing at the rim like this after he like missed that short shot, I fucking hated it. You remember how mad I got about that?
That was awesome.
Oh man, I couldn't stand Zoe, man. I couldn't stand Zoe. And Tim Hardaway Jr. Listen, when he was TMJ, like when he was that, when he was that dude, I was like, yo, I love this guy. He was, he's the original like killer crossover, but as a Miami Heat, one of my favorite Knicks playoff game that I've ever attended, it was you and I, was when it was Knicks Heat first round, ball got kicked out to Tim Hardaway Jr. last second 3 attempt.
Tim Hardaway.
Yeah, I'm sorry, to Tim Hardaway Sr., sorry. And Patrick comes off his man and blocks the 3, and the entire garden goes bananas, game over, horn. Oh, so much fun. But yeah man, we got to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, we all know that he had 0 field goal attempts in the fourth quarter last game. And after having what I thought was a brilliant floor game in game one, he comes out in game two. He has 31 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, just defensively, offensively, the aggression. He comes out with 11 points in the first quarter. Cat was fantastic. He was the best player wearing blue that night. And, what else can you say? I got a couple other things I want to say about Cat, but what did you think?
Well, I loved it. I loved what I saw. I mean, I think that this is exactly what I mean. Like, of course, Brunson looking back on it is like, oh my gosh, what did I do? How do I not get this guy the ball? And Tibbs is thinking, damn it, we didn't get Cat the ball. But I think sometimes, even on a pro level, the game can kind of get away from you. And with all that said, if Bridges hits that shot, we may not even be talking about this. We're up 3-0.
I hate that. When Tibbs said that, Tibbs said that in a post-game press conference, I was livid. Yeah, after the first game, he said,
but you know what, Nick? We all say it when it suits our argument. We all say stuff like that. So okay, I mean, it is true. But like I always tell you, it doesn't matter, right? We didn't hit the shot, so we didn't win. But
there was procedural things that we didn't do in that game one, and I'm sorry.
We wish we had done better. Yes.
The exactly thing that I want is my coach to not let the game get away from him. I want him to be able to see the game in the fourth quarter and say, this many minutes has gone past, and Cat has not gotten a shot up. We need to run a play for Cat. Cat is our biggest advantage in this. He's the one person that they really don't have anybody for unless we let Tobias Harris guard him behind the 3-point line. If that's not the case, and even then, sometimes you just got to just give him the fucking ball. Just get him the ball.
I get it, Nick, but
he's your second best player.
I get it, Nick, but what I never understand is just your definitiveness in saying this, as if you were coaching, you could not possibly make that mistake or make that oversight. Of course you could. I think a lot of coaches make this oversight and we never know about it.
This has nothing to do with me.
No, but I'm saying it's about Tibbs. I'm saying a lot of coaches probably have these situations.
There's no way Joe Mazzulla doesn't let that happen.
He's perfect.
Are you kidding? No, I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm saying that most players don't allow the entire fourth quarter to go past with their second best player, their $50 million player, not getting a shot. They call a timeout and they say, run this. And the purpose of this is to get the ball to Cat. And when in a timeout, they look at I don't think he sat in a timeout and looked at all the players and said, get the fucking ball to Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't think he said that. I don't think he did that. And if he did do that, and if he did do that and they just didn't listen, that's as big of a problem. The man's not infallible. Just like
I'm not saying he's not infallible, Nick. I'm saying they're all fallible. That's exactly what I'm saying. They're all fallible.
Yes.
Okay. You saying that Joe Mazzulla could never do that. You saying that Joe Mazzulla could never do that. I don't know how you can say that.
I don't think he would make that mistake.
I don't think we'll know. So I think they're all people are fallible.
Yes,
humans,
and
coaches,
that's what we're here to do is talk about that. We're here to talk about when they make mistakes.
But it's not so absolute. It's not so absolute.
It is absolute that Karl-Anthony Towns should never be able to shoot 0 in a fourth quarter. And if he does, it is on the point guard, the coaches, and himself. It's on everybody. It's a huge oversight mistake, and it's something that had to be corrected, and it was.
Exactly.
I'm glad that he corrected it. I'm glad that listen. I gave him his credit. I give him his credit. I also am fair, and I criticize him when I think he's wrong.
To me, this is less about, it just, I don't know. We look at it differently. That's all.
Sure. Your boy, Karl-Anthony Towns. Also, the other thing that I really like from him is that, the help on Cade, I thought was excellent throughout the game. That turnaround baseline fadeaway, that was like some Melo type shit he did in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Right?
And it went in. It went in that one time, a couple times, right? But I'm
talking about specifically the one that he made when it was either a 2 or a 4 point game with like less than 2 minutes to go. He gets the ball on the baseline. He tries to make a move. Now the shot clock is going down. He turns his back. Fakes to his right, over his left shoulder, fadeaway jump shot. Like I said, straight up Melo.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Of course, that it went in. He did try a very similar move earlier in the game that didn't go in. I like him more going to the basket than fading away, but in that moment, it was the right shot and it went in. So how can you go wrong?
Yeah, like I said, I thought in the fourth quarter, him immediately being aggressive, I thought was extremely important. Bridges has his best game of the series. He has 20 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He's got 3 steals, and then he also has 2 blocks. Had the pep in his step from the absolute jump. Like I said, talking trash. He made some big shots, hit a big 3, started off the game with a 3, and he just played with a different level of aggression on the offensive end. I actually have thought Bridges has been pretty good on both ends. Like offensively, he hasn't been as aggressive. He had 18 shots in this game, and I thought that was huge. Defensively, I think he's been pretty good in this series. I did think that when he did get switched on to Cade, he seemed to take it a little bit more seriously. And with Cade, he can't body Cade up like OG can. He's got to be handsy with Cade, and handsy and making him worry about the dribble. And I thought he did a great job with that. And I thought that you felt a different. I texted that into the group chat with us two and Uncle Godfrey and Godfrey Jr. And I said it within the first couple of minutes. I was like, "Yo, this dude, you could see it. You could see it. It was coming off of him from the very beginning. And we need that Bridges on a consistent basis. That is the biggest question mark that you have, and the biggest thing that I can't wait to see on Sunday is we've seen this team go up and down all season when it comes to the effort and the intensity. And you know what? It's the playoff time. It's the playoffs right now. There's no time for that bullshit. From top to bottom, we got to figure out a way how to bring it like that from the jump. We're up 8-1 in this game. Every game, it seems like we've been coming back. We were the team that was ahead that made them keep coming back this game. Exactly. And you see the end result.
Well, I mean, you hope that they bring the same energy, from, everybody on the bench to everybody in the game. But, as we always see, man, it's so sometimes. But like you say, this is the playoffs. You hope that they can be more consistent with their effort and their energy. It really just comes down to how much effort. On the defensive end, Nick, you could just see them running. The thing that Detroit, I think, was doing to us quite a bit in game 1 and a lot in game 2 is that they were pestering us on literally every single aspect of the game. There's certain things in basketball, Nick, like when somebody inbounds the ball, where usually someone will just let you inbound the ball. You know what I mean? And then they start playing defense. They were up on everything, and we were starting to do that to them at the start of the last game. We have to bring that same energy. We cannot spend any time letting them bring that energy more on the floor, because once you get that ball rolling with these guys, these young players, that's a really hard ball to stop rolling downhill. So I think when we are the initiators of that energy and not trying to now meet them or rise up to meet them, we're in a much better situation. If we're trying to rise up to meet them, that's a really bad spot for us to be in. We can't be there.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you on all fronts there, and it's something that we have to figure out a way to have some consistency if we want to close out this series. And let's not even talk about what we might see next series against Boston. Brunson, like I said, 9 assists from the jump. You could see that he was looking to facilitate a little bit more. Got a little bit of foul trouble in the first quarter. That is one thing that makes me nervous. Is the a few more campaign minutes that we saw, is that a product of the Brunson foul trouble more so than Tibbs wanting to play him a little bit more? And to me, it's not even necessarily about I need campaign to get so many minutes. In the last game, Brunson played all but 6 seconds of the second half. I don't ever think that that's a good thing. I think that when you have to find a way to get him a couple minutes, going from the end of the third, going into the fourth, and it just allows him to finish the game stronger. I think that's very, very important that we do that. Detroit's bench is killing us. I mean, they're absolutely destroying us, points wise. But overall, we have arguably the best starting lineup in basketball. So we're going to lean on them heavy. And when we can play 9 guys and we can just get just a couple spells for these guys, I think it's really, really important. OG, 22 points. Again, excellent D on Cade. He had a stint there in the second quarter where he was just, destroying everyone. Couldn't be stopped. He goes to the hole strong. He's hitting that little pull-up midi, getting the 3 to fall after the last game. He was 0 for 4. He's still every once in a while going to do some silly shit where he's fumbling the ball. You know,
Oh my God.
he's got stone hands, man.
Sometimes he's got sandpaper on his hands, man. It's just like, dude, what is going on? Especially when he gets close to the basket. I mean, holy
I know,
smokes.
but it's so weird because sometimes it's so Jekyll and Hyde, because there's other times where it feels like he like finishes through contact, bumps dudes out of the way, and goes up strong, and no one can stop him. And then sometimes I wish though he would just pull up for that little short jumper just a lot more, because he's like a Kawhi when he shoots that shot, man. He hits it when he shoots it, but he doesn't do it enough.
I love OG, but sometimes he just
you can't ever just praise
I love
OG. You always got
no. I love OG, but he does some things sometimes that, and whenever he's going to the basket, I'm very uptight till it goes through the net. I mean, anything's possible with this guy. Anything's possible. I mean, I love OG, but he's a bit of a crapshoot sometimes. And now the sugar bread hairdo is interesting.
I like it. I think if it's, I like it better, where he's got the little twist as opposed to just like hey, I just woke up type of hair. I like this better. I think Suni Lee is making sure he's right. He's making
is
sure.
Is he supposed to be seeing this girl Suni Lee?
There's rumors. And then the one game where he like went off crazy, she was there, and everybody's saying it was because she was there. He had a very good stat line a couple times when she was there, and now she's been the last couple Knicks playoff games. So many, and they've taken a picture together at least. So people are surmising that there may be some sort of romance developing. If you're OG though, I mean, I'm sorry, Doug. If you're like that, if you're like 6'8", 6'7", you can't marry no chick who's like 5 foot tall. You got to get you a chick who's like 5'10", just for athlete breeding purposes. I mean, she's an Olympic gymnast, but she's tiny. She's a tiny Asian woman, man. Come on, man. You got to get you're the one who used to always say stuff. You used to always say like, yo, if you're Patrick, you got to get you a woman who's like, 6'4" or something like that.
Yeah, but come on. The heart wants what the heart wants.
Fair enough. I thought that also OG, his defense on Cade was fantastic, but I will say this: OG Anunoby, you owe Karl-Anthony Towns a dinner or something, because at the end of the game, when it's a 2-point game at this point, OG gets dropped by Cade on a nice little like hezzy spin move. Dropped. I mean, straight up, shook up, sprawling on the ground. And then as Cade Cunningham gets to the rim, Cat comes over, stays vertical, makes the play, and the Knicks end up pushing it up to Jalen Brunson, who just sees two guys ahead of him. When he catches the ball, there's three guys that are at least parallel with him, but he sees the two guys ahead of him, and he just refuses to be denied at that point. Goes strong and just lays that ball up, man. And that was his second layup in the waning moments. The other one, when he saw that Schroeder was on him and was like, this guy's too small. I thought that Brunson did an excellent job with those two plays at the end, and then also hitting his free throws until he intentionally missed one at the end. And we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about that here in a little second. What did you think about Brunson and his overall performance?
Brunson played very well. I mean, you have to be very happy with Brunson. He had a fantastic floor game. Listen, man, that guy's under an extreme amount of pressure every minute of every game. He has to know that he's going to get butchered nonstop between now and whenever the Knicks season ends. I mean, honestly, that's the way the NBA playoffs are. That's the way it's going to go. I was watching the game the other night, maybe not to the same extent, but listen, they were very physical with Steph Curry too. So they're letting a lot of things go and letting guys play hard. But Brunson's got the body and the mindset to do it, and I think when he plays that way, it makes our entire team play that way. And I think sometimes, honestly, Nick, I felt like this game, even though Thibodeau said what he said, and I think he did the right thing, as always coaches do between games, even though he said what he said, I think we complained less this game. I think we just went out there and played hard.
I think it was also a better officiated game. So there wasn't.
I think it was a better officiated game, but also too, we were getting the calls that we preferred, Nick, because we were the aggressor. It's chicken and egg, because we play better, so we get better calls, and we think it's a better officiated game. Of course we do, because we're getting better calls. But the fact of the matter is, Nick, in that last game, the amount of fouls were very similar. But they got more shooting fouls than we did. Part of that because they were being more aggressive going to the basket than we were.
Yeah,
always
but
hate
see, but
when
that's the thing. The more aggressive going to the basket part, they had 46 paint points, and we had 40 paint points in that game. I think we were being just as aggressive going to the basket. I just don't think I like. Listen, I thought that we benefited from some calls in the first game. I thought we benefited from more than a few calls in the first game when we were sitting there watching it together. I said that to you exactly. I was like, that's a tough call on them. You know, I would not be happy. I thought that we benefited from some calls. I thought that the second game was horribly officiated, and I think most people who watch the game that aren't Detroit Pistons fans felt that way. But
I don't think it was a great officiated game, Nick. I think that we still could have won, and it wasn't a great officiated game. But I think there are many games that are not great officiated that go for us and go against us. That one happened to go against us. We still could have won the game if we played better, which is what I think we did the other night, I don't think the two things put us in position to win.
I think the two things are mutually exclusive.
I think
we could have played. We could have played better. We could have played better in one, sure, but it was still a shitty officiated game. The game was
if you play better than what we did, we played on our heels. If you play better, you force the officials to call a better game because these guys are doing exactly what the Knicks used to do in the 90s, Nick. The exact same thing, where they're playing so aggressively, and when teams are on their heels, they got them now because they got the refs and they got the other team now, and that's how the Knicks won a lot of games until they.
Yeah, the refs need to not get. The refs need to not get got.
It's human nature, though, Nick.
That's the whole point. Is that their job is to not get got. Their job is to say that's a foul and that's not a foul, and they did that badly in game 2.
Okay, you play better, or you complain about it in the offseason.
I think that you can play better, and you can still say that was shitty officiating. And I think that even if we win that game, I think that Tom Thibodeau still would have said what he said afterwards. I mean,
that's great too.
I agree with Tibbs. I agree with Tibbs on this one. This is where Tibbs and I see.
I agree with Tibbs too. I don't disagree with Tibbs or you. I'm not saying it was a bad officiated game. I'm saying because we played better, we put ourselves in position to win, and we didn't play well enough to win in that game, even with the bad officiating. We could have won that game, but we played soft. We played soft that game, and
I didn't see it that way. I didn't think the Knicks played soft at all. I thought the Knicks definitely stepped it up a little bit in this next game, just as far as like some of the overall, just like the tightness of the defense. And I just thought overall the defensive scheme was a little bit better. How we decided to guard Cade Cunningham out of the pick and roll, and how we decided to try to, especially with Beasley, run him off the 3-point line, or at least catch the ball a little bit further back. I agree with everything you're saying. I just don't. I just acknowledge the fact that the game was, not officiated well. And even if we would have played better, I would still feel the same way. As far as Brunson, why is it that they allow or why are they just like allowing guys to like shove him like when the ball's not even in play? They're allowing these guys like Tobias Harris and Beasley, ball's not even play. Play's over, play's dead, and this guy just walks past him and like shoves him and whatnot. And Brunson just stops and like looks at him like, I'm sorry, but like if you're a ref, even if you're not, I'm not saying you got to call a tech right there, but you got to walk over to that other player that does it on Detroit and say, don't fucking do that again, or I'm calling a tech if you do that. Come on, man. I get it. You want to play physical with this guy in between the lines in the course of the game, and if you want to do that, then you get called for a foul. But this whole like just deciding to like give this guy a shove after the whistle. Come on, man. That's in any era, the ref should be like, yo, stop doing that shit. What the fuck is the matter with
you? Yeah, they should stop it, but they're not gonna.
Yeah. Okay. So if Josh Hart decides to go up and shove Cade Cunningham after after the whistle,
if he doesn't get a foul call, I don't give a shit. But if he gets a foul call, then I hope he wouldn't do it again.
I almost would like to see him do that. Because at this point,
sooner or later,
they're doing it to Brunson so much.
The only way you can police it, then you got to police it. If they won't call it.
Yeah, but I just think that's bad. I think that's not smart by the referees, because now this is how you like we want games to be intense. We want it to be chippy. Reggie Miller, who should never be allowed to do a Knick game. I can't stand him, but he was getting all hyped up about the chippiness, and I like to see it too. I don't know. I think that shit is Bush League, man. I think that the Pistons are a bunch of fake tough guys. They're a bunch of fake tough guys, specifically this guy Paul Reed, and also Malik Beasley. It's like you could tell they're like they want to be that guy. They're trying to do this, but it's not how they're really built. I don't feel that way. And like I said, I thought at the beginning of this game, the Knicks deciding to respond to that And I don't care if they were faking it or not. They responded to it. And I thought that was extremely important, just to kind of send that message, not even to them, but just send that message to yourselves and within.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I felt like, the second game we weren't responding properly. And now I do think in that 10-minute span when we came back and tied up the game, we responded right there. We responded.
Hold on. Let me make a clarification. When I say responded, I'm not talking about. I'm less talking about the stuff that happened, in play. I'm talking about the stuff that like where when a guy's getting shoved and we shove them back and get a tech, whatever. What the fuck, I thought that there's a lot more times where guys were getting like nose to nose and shit.
But I think it's all part and parcel. I think our response, like you were saying with Mitch and Cat in the third game, I'm not saying we should have done that in the second game. I'm saying we were getting those little silly things like that were happening in the second game and we weren't responding. And then I think there was shit going on during the game and we weren't responding, but we did for that 10-minute span. And we went on that run and got it back to close and almost won the game. Now, in game 3, we came out and we did that for pretty much all the game, except for the part where, they came back a little bit on us in the second half. We did that for most of the game where we played that kind of ball. And that's what I think changes everything. It changes the other team. It changes the refs. It changes everything in our favor. But when we don't do it, it changes everything in reverse. And we so I feel like it's more in our control what happens than anything else.
Tim Hardaway Jr., he, got crazy hot in the second quarter. But I'm telling you, as he was hitting those shots, Dad, I said to myself, he's going to regress to the mean. He's going to have a point where he's going to start missing some of these shots.
Exactly.
And also, that 6-point possession, I don't understand exactly what Brunson was trying to do right there. What he was he's trying to do the whole like hand in the face thing, like Shane Battier used to do to Kobe. But like, come on, man, control your fucking self. And that was a huge momentum shift at that point in the game.
That was a very serious blow too, Nick. I mean, he could have really messed this guy's eye up. He could have. No. But listen,
9 at that point, and all of a sudden it's a 3-point game, and the whole momentum of the game totally
was a terrible swing. It was a terrible swing. And listen, if somebody does that to Brunson, we're losing our minds. And I was surprised. No, because I definitely don't think Brunson's a dirty guy.
He wasn't trying to poke him in the eye.
Guy. No, he knows this guy. They played on the same team for 4 years.
And more than anything else, he doesn't want to give up 3 free throws.
Of course not. So, I mean, like you said, I don't know what he's doing right there. So it was just silly and stupid. But, we figured out a way. But, Tim Hardaway, I mean, he's a good player, but, he's not getting you over the hump. I mean, he's made a good career for himself. That's for sure. I'm happy for him for that.
Yeah. Schroeder, this guy celebrates.
Listen to me, Nick. Like, I think we should try to get him. I want to get him this past offseason.
No.
Why not?
No.
Nick, if he had campaigns right now, he wouldn't be better for us? If he's doing campaigns now.
He makes a lot more money than campaign.
How much more, Nick? He was on 3 teams this season. I'd love to know the difference in their salaries. Because this guy, I'm telling you, Nick, he is better for us than campaign would be for us. There's no doubt. You would agree. I'd love to know if there's a big difference.
He's better than campaign.
He's done this. He's done this for quite a while.
He makes $13 million a year.
How much does campaign make? Like 7?
I think so. Let me get to campaign.
Get rid of campaign and Shamet.
Campaign makes $2 million.
Wow.
Okay. So
that's the difference.
That's
him and Shamet. They're out. Bringing
Shamet, I think, makes like 1.5. Shamet ain't making no fucking money. Come on, man. Honestly, that's the thing. I'm starting to dislike this guy Beasley, but Beasley only makes $6 million. Can you imagine if we had, instead of having like a Precious, we had a Beasley? But a guy who's a little bit bigger, who leads the league in threes made and can go to the hole a little bit. Come on, man, that would be. But when
you have a guy like Precious, you're looking for a backup big, Nick. They're not Beasley.
Okay, I'm just the only reason I said Precious is because of the contracts. Let's do Shamet and campaign like you just said. Let's combine them two for the $6 million. That I'll take. You know what I mean? Beasley is exactly 100%. What we're looking for. Shout out to my guy Keith Watkins. Greeting from the ATL as always. He did this to me. Super fan. We appreciate you, Keith. We got a good amount of eyes on us on a Friday night. I think a bunch of you are over on Twitter. If you're over on Twitter, give me a follow. throw some comments in there. We won't be able to see him right now, but we'll be able to see him afterwards. Or you could come over to the YouTube where you could hit subscribe and you could see not only this show, but Nic On Knicks. And you'll know exactly when we're going live. But wherever you are, if you're taking some time on your Friday night to check out me and my pops, you're much appreciated. And then a couple other things I wanted to touch on from the game. Bickerstaff, the challenge was idiotic. That was the stupidest fucking challenge I've ever seen when he challenged on Cat doing a turnaround. He challenged on Cat doing a turnaround fadeaway and Tobias Harris raked him across the arm and he challenged it in like the second quarter. And then, he was as soon as it happened, I was like, yes, they have no more challenges. That's great. Ridiculous. And then, that ended up becoming something that was noteworthy later. Many people were saying that Brunson went backcourt, which it was a little bit too close for comfort, but he didn't. That's not the rules. And honestly, I've seen that enough times that in real time, I realized that's not the rule. Yeah. He has to get that forward momentum. He basically barely touched it, tapped it, went to backcourt. Guys do that all the time. Too many casuals don't understand that. And then, Bickerstaff was losing his mind at that point. And then, what's up with the clock operators, man?
They say they get neutral clock operators.
Okay, Dad, but
that was terrible. That was terrible. I've never seen anything like that.
Dad, I've heard something else about that today. Is that they get neutral? They say neutral, right? So they don't use the clock operators that are the clock operators from the Pistons, but they get it's not like they go get the clock operators from Oklahoma City or from Philadelphia or anything like that. They use some people that they consider to be clock operators. I don't know what exactly that means, if they're like 1099, if they're on the payroll, whatever, but they're local people. They're not flying anybody in. So they're from fucking Detroit or the surrounding Michigan area, or at least from the Midwest.
Yeah, but that didn't that ended up helping them in a sort of way, but that wasn't even trying to be slick. That was just stupid. That was just stupid.
I don't know what it was. I don't know.
They thought that the clock started when the ball hit the rim.
Listen, if you're a clock operator, there's only 3 rules that you need to know other than start it and stop it. Okay. And that's one of them. And I knew that. Okay.
The pressure of the moment, Nick. They got, the pressure of the moment. Somebody was just and just press the button. Stupid. People do stupid things.
Listen, man. And when they do that, they do that, I'm going to call it fucking stupid. And it almost fucked the Knicks. And the fact that they were then able to get a side out of bounds where the guy was able to move. I don't know
how that worked out.
Side out of bounds, the guy can move.
Shoot it again.
Side out of bounds. Yes, right. Exactly. Make him shoot it again. But they get a side out of bounds. They allowed Jalen Duren to move on the side out of bounds. Luckily, he threw the stupidest pass of all time. And then, also,
why are they having him inbound the ball, Nick?
Dad. That was
why are you having this big, Orlando Woolridge type?
And now you have
inbound the ball
because you have him inbounding the ball. You have Mitch being the guy who's defending it. Why you want to have that guy? I want to have that guy down by the rim at the possibility we might throw some sort of lob or some shit.
He jumped up in the air and threw the ball with 2 hands, like volleyball style. What are we doing? So stupid. I was like, oh, this guy's come on.
Yo,
that's Bickerstaff. That's Bickerstaff.
That's Bickerstaff. That's
should have had a better play there. And they had time out before that to design a play.
Yes. And if you're going to give them the ball back in that situation, you have to take time off the clock.
That's the other thing I was saying. So, okay, can we get a tick? But realistically, right, it shouldn't be it.
Okay, so let's say it starts a second later when they touch it. Okay, so we're saying that we never gave them the chance to do that. Okay, fine. But point 2 has to come off. Point 3 has to come off. Honestly, I would think. But come on. Something. Come on. You can't just say side. The thing is that if they somehow, some way get off a heave and they hit a 3 right there, it's the biggest robbery in the history of the NBA. What
in the history of sport?
Yeah, right. Right.
It was potentially like an absolute shit show, and it was anyway. But it was pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Come on, man. Clock operator, you got to do better. As my man Keith Watkins said, you have one job.
Yeah. Be better, man. Be better.
Got to be better. Cade, listen. Cade obviously is an otherworldly talent. He is fantastic. At the end of the game, I think he looks a little bit worn down just from having fucking OG leaning on him all game. OG tries to lean on him as much as he possibly can. And then once again, he had 24 points on 25 shots, another 5 turnovers. That's if you can get that from Cade, then you'll fucking live with it, man.
We'll take it. We'll take it. I mean, he's a big dude, man, and he's a good player. He needs more players on the team, obviously. I mean, that team is on the way up, but, they need some more real ballers on the team. If Tobias Harris, last night, on Wednesday night, it was really Tim Hardaway Jr. as the second fiddle scorer, but then Tobias Harris can't be your second fiddle guy, man. Like I heard Bart Scott bemoaning Tobias Harris's game the other night, and I'm like, dude, man, you can't expect Tobias Harris to have like 3 or 4 games where he's scoring 22 points. It's just not going to happen.
No, he had a half, and that's the thing. He's going to have a half, but in the second half, he was missing those shots, just like with Tim Hardaway Jr. And you know what? Beasley, I think he was 2-11 from 3. I think he's 2 for his last 17 overall. Expect him to get hot in one of these next two games because that guy is a shooter.
His name is going to go down, Hardaway
Jr. Yeah, that happened in that game. He ended up missing 5 straight between the third and fourth quarter.
That was so awesome. But what's his name? This guy, Tobias Harris, is going to get really, visibly more frustrated this next game if Cat keeps going at him. Cat needs to keep going at him and go down because you can see it's getting under that guy's skin because he can't stop him. Just keep going, Cat.
He's probably their best answer for Cat. And then once in the first quarter, when he got into foul trouble, and now it's Jalen Duren. And, the big thing about Cat is, and this is another, positive effect of us playing fast, is when we play fast, who's the last person up the court? It's Cat. And so his man has to stay out with him and cannot go to the paint, because if not, he's going to be the trailer. He's going to walk into that logo 3, which, I mean, when he's hitting that, it's not when he's hitting that, he hits that. Okay. He missed the first one. He hit 3 of his next 4. He was 4 of 8 from 3. And that is another thing that I feel like as a team, as a coaching staff, Cat, you can't shoot 3 threes a game. You're too good at it. You're too good at it. You got to shoot 7, 8 threes a game, dog. Like, you're just too good at it. Cat ends up being 10 of 18. I thought it was interesting. Him and Brunson combined for 38 field goals in game 2 and also in game 3. It was just the difference in the distribution. Cat getting more field goal attempts, Brunson getting less. And I think that's something that we absolutely have to focus on moving forward. Cat, I think he's got the message, man. He's going, he knows he's got to put him up. Bridges, 18 shots. I thought that was huge. Got to put him up. And, Brunson's got to continue to get these guys involved. And as long as he does that, and as long as we play defense, I think that we win this in 5, and we could even win it. We definitely win it within 6, but we could win it within 5. I mean, if we win this next game, and if we could just, win by like 10, man, just, pull away from these guys.
An easier game. Nick, I think that, if we can win this next game is huge, right? And if we win this next game, I feel really confident that we're going to win, and it's not going 7. But what I see also, too, on the offense, Nick, is that when we come down and we throw the ball around the perimeter and never step foot in the paint and put up a shot, I think that's usually a bad shot. I think we do so much better when we're taking threes off of penetration, at least getting the paint at some point in the possession, because we're giving them a defensive possession off when we're just doing that round the perimeter thing and then putting up a shot. If we make them play defense, if we make them move, they'll make mistakes and we'll capitalize.
I totally agree with you on that. And I think that even sometimes when we don't necessarily get into the paint, that's the other thing that Cat touches do. Because Cat getting the ball, even if he catches it behind the 3-point line, almost makes the defense immediately go into some sort of scramble. Because if his guy comes out to him, he typically can get past him. But at the very least, he's got one of their bigger players out at the 3-point line having to play him close. And then that's when we get a lot of cutting and moving off the ball. And listen, if this Knicks team, if we could have a game where we shoot 40% from 3, we're going to blow them out. I mean, we still throughout last game, we shot better from 3, but we still shot 37% from 3. They shot 42% from 3. If we have a game where we shoot 40% from 3, it's a wrap. It's over. Schroeder and Tim Hardaway combined 10 of 18 from 3. Come on, man. Schroeder, whatever the fuck you want to call him. I'm tired of his ass. I'm tired of him. But you know what, though? At the end of games, if you want to have him in, he's got to guard Brunson. Right. Brunson's going to bust that ass. And another big play in this game was at one point, they were trying so hard to get the switch. They got the switch. They got OG switched off of Cade and they got Brunson on him, and Brunson was able to stand up and force him into a tough midi, and he missed it, So I think that's one thing that we got to continue to do and that's another criticism that I have of the Knicks. And I don't know if this is honestly, this is the thing that I put solely on the players, because I watch OG do stupid shit like he did at the beginning of this game and overhelp. And I think it's Oscar Thompson has the ball against Josh Hart, and he decides out of nowhere that he just wants to run over and double to him, and it gets kicked over to Tim Hardaway Jr., and that's the first three he hit. And then, he gets rolling after that, and there's just no reason to help. Even sometimes when it's Brunson, sometimes, guys, just we overhelp too much. We're too quick to come with the help. And OG, as much as I like him, and as much as sometimes he comes on that back end and he like makes a steal, sometimes that gamble, it fucks you. And sometimes we just got to stand strong. Everybody guard your man and, not just force ourselves to be in a scramble drill.
Yeah, no, sometimes, they get a little overzealous there. But, all in all, I think that, just keep up the effort and keep up the tough play. I think we'll be all right.
Our New York Metropolitans lost for the first time in 8 games tonight against the Washington Nationals. The Mets were down 2-0 for the most of the game. They end up getting a 3-run triple from Mark Vientos in the 8th. They come back, they get ahead, and then there's a couple things here, okay? So the go-ahead run, Soto, you got to make that catch, man. And it's not an easy catch. But the triple that leads to us end up giving up the go-ahead run on a single in the bottom of the 9th. Soto jumps up, ball hits the top of his glove. He's not able to make the catch, and then that leads to a leadoff triple, and then that guy is singled in, and the Mets end up losing on a play, a ball that hits Jeff McNeil in the foot, trickles into the outfield, and the D-backs, the Nationals are able to score from first base. Game over. But overall, the Mets are truthfully looking like right now one of the, if not the best team in baseball. They just swept a 7-game home stand. They were able to get it done. That 4-game sweep against the Cardinals was great. The 3-game sweep against the Phillies was amazing. That podcast that I sent you of that dude from the Phillies, I listened to that with Nazi. Some choice language, but I had to. And we were cracking up in the car on the way to basketball practice, listening to that guy lose his shit about the Phillies and their 3-game sweep loss to the Mets. Man, the Mets team, man, listen, even in this game, even in this loss, Senga continues to pitch well. He did give up 2 runs, but hey, he's pitched very well this season. He pitched well since he's been a Met, period. Whenever he's been healthy, he's got an ERA under 3. He's been fantastic. And continue to show the fight. We continue to show the fight and the ability to come at this. We have carried over that identity that we developed the second half of last year, which allows us to be able to never be out of a game, and you always feel like there's going to be a comeback. Soto, this is really the first kind of showing of his. It wasn't bad fielding. It's a catch I'd like him to have. But most big leaguers make that catch. Most big leaguers make that.
I don't know about it. Well, look, Nick, I think it's a catch that. I think that's who? Nemo? Nemo makes the catch. Nemo's a better fielder and definitely better at going the ball.
What you see Soto's arm the other day, though? Soto's arm the other day.
He's got a great arm.
It's not great.
I think Soto made an extension for that ball and tried to get the ball. The ball was just a little further than he could get to. It went off the top of his glove. It never got firmly in his glove and like he dropped it out of his glove.
But he was also for it. But he wasn't there. He wasn't fully extended. He misjudged it a little bit. He was here. He was here with it.
I think it was a good effort by him. I think Soto's not a plus fielder. You're going to get some of those. I think he'll more than make up for it at the plate. And I think he'll make a lot of good plays in the field too. And I think he's got a very good arm. Not a great arm, but I think he's got a very good arm. So hold
on. One more thing about Soto. I don't ever want to see you bunt again. The bunt attempt.
I know. Some people getting all uptight about that.
No, we don't need you bunting, Soto. We just don't. I don't want that from you. I don't want to see it again. He struggled from the plate. Listen, I'm not making a big deal about that. I know that he'll come around. I'm hoping. Listen, the amount of great players that we've seen, great players, Carlos Beltran, Francisco Lindor, that have had that first year with the Mets that has been lackluster. It's just like you almost feel like this guy's immune to it due to the fact that he's like, considered to be like the Ted Williams of this generation. But so far, it's been a bit of a struggle. He was feet away from having his first Citi Field home run that would have been a 3-run bomb into the upper deck. I'm just, I'm patient on him getting it back. And then that play, I would have liked for him to catch it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but we've been able to withstand it because, our other two, all-star level MVP candidate guys have been able to do their thing. I mean, Pete Alonso is the front runner for NL MVP right now. And then Francisco Lindor later, go ahead, name him the captain. And he is just, been doing it with the bat in April, which is not something we always see from him.
No, I love Lindor. He's my guy. I'm a little more upset, frankly, on the fielding with Squirrel there. I would have thought he could have just gone down there and kept that ball in the infield. And that's usually his thing with the slide there.
He kicked it with his foot. I don't understand right there. Like, he kicked it with his foot. Even,
So I think Acuna gets to that ball, obviously.
Acuna definitely gets to that ball.
Obviously. But, we don't want to start screaming that just yet. Squirrel came back. It's his first game. And listen, you're not going to win every game. It's baseball,
Yep.
We won 7 out of 8. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, as we said, Squirrel and Alvarez both back tonight. Brett Beatty gets sent down. Kind of feel for the kid. He had a upper deck job against Zach Wheeler, just absolutely smoked the ball. And you think maybe, hey, he's figured out a way. Maybe Azakar gets sent down. At that point, I think it was clear to everybody involved with the Mets that Acuna's not getting sent down. He's not going to be the one. And so the extra element that he brings with his speed and when he can do it at the bat and what he does at the plate, Acuna was not going to get sent down for sure. Yeah. And Alvarez, I liked Alvarez's swing tonight.
Better.
I thought that, he wasn't looking like he was cutting as much, a little bit more under control, and his eye was looking a little bit better. And also, I thought he did a much better job of blocking the plate than we typically see from Alvarez, which is probably his biggest deficiency. So if he can, limit the balls that he swings at and he can block the plate a little bit better, he becomes one of the more, versatile, young, impactful catchers in the league. So definitely looking forward to seeing what these guys can do when they're back in the lineup. And listen, the only thing right now that's giving me any pause is Diaz has been a little bit shaky. And I know you're always quick to not even Diaz, it's not just Diaz. You and relievers have a thing.
I have tough time with relievers, but Diaz, I don't know. This guy, he drives me crazy sometimes. And then the other night, come on with the 3. Did you think
that he faked the injury due to try to not get the balk? Because
shout out to Joe Matura. He said that Diaz came down with an attack of vaginosis.
Listen, the fact that he didn't pitch, that he wasn't available tonight, to me tells me that he really did.
Yeah, he was really obviously really hurt. Come on, something in his hip, But
wait. Did you hear why? Did you hear him explain what was going on with his hip?
He said it was locking up on him or something like that.
But he said that he had just started doing new stretches because the team realized that one of his legs is longer than the other.
Something like that. All right, come on. What are we talking about? You've lived your whole life and you haven't known this? Okay, where's your birth certificate? How old are you actually? It's one of those type of Almonte type situations.
When I heard that, I was like, I wanted to ask you, but I was like, I'm going to wait for the pod. That shit is hilarious. Like, come on, man. Like, especially an interpreter saying that makes it even funnier.
Well, actually, and that's what I'm saying.
When he said it, when he said it, he said he was just talking to the media after the game without an interpreter, too. So it was him saying it in broken English, which made it even funnier.
I don't know what's going on, man.
He's an interesting
shouldn't that have been recorded at birth? Come on.
You can't figure that out until you're fully grown, Dad. But it's not like he had like a club foot, like a Damon Wayans type situation when he was young. It wasn't like that.
But maybe one of them shoes with a really thick heel.
But main thing is that maybe that's part of his superpower. Maybe that's what makes him get like such movement on the ball or some shit. Whatever the case may be.
He comes down further when he steps down into that.
Yeah, whatever the fuck it is. But my thing is that, listen, if you find that out now,
I'm throwing meatballs then. How about that?
If you find that out right now, then I don't need you doing any type of new stretches. Whatever you've been doing, that's what you got. You can walk with a limp later in life. Don't fucking change the shit now.
No, man. You got to the bigs this way. Stick with it.
Yeah. The triple play that was turned against the Mets today, that with the ball that was trapped, that I saw it in real time. In real time, I looked at Naz, I said it was trapped. And then I was like, oh, they'll get it on replay. But you can't explain to me why that's
you
not
can
something
review. You can review a trap ball in the outfield, but not in the infield. I don't know what that means, but that'll clearly be changed by next season or by the postseason. That can't happen again.
Mendy was hot, and you don't see Mendy get that hot that often.
No, he wasn't. I thought Mendy was going to get a little hotter, but he kept his cool. I thought that could build. That could brew into something. But Mendy kept his cool.
Yeah. And then that freaking ump with the huge weird ears, the guy who made the call. And then
you could tell he was apologetic. He felt
that's why he let Mendy get his shit off, because he realized that it wasn't great. But my thing is, what I don't understand is how none of the somebody else has got to come over and speak to him and be like, yo, the ball bounced. And the home plate, the guy on third base, the second base guy, I get it. That's kind of close, but the guy, and he's kind of blocked out of the play. But the home plate, it seemed obvious to everyone on the field but that guy. Everybody, Vientos is looking back at it. McNeil waited and saw and then went. The fielder did not immediately act as if he caught the ball. Just a bad call. Unfortunate. The Mets got that terrible call again, with Buteau covering, and he stepped on the bag last week. I don't remember what, and then that cost us a run. But with baseball, my whole thing is that, first of all, give him another challenge. Give him another challenge, and then in baseball, everything should be reviewable, because there's no judgment calls in baseball, other than the only thing that you could argue as a judgment call in baseball is balls and strikes. And even that, really, if we really want to look at it and what they were doing in spring training, that's not a judgment call either. But everything else in baseball, it's the easiest one to be able to make sure that you have replay and you get everything right, because everything is cut and dry. There's no judgment calls.
Yeah.
No incidentals. So. It's either safe or not safe, foul or not foul, out or not. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, but I'm not making everything reviewable, because then the game would be too long.
Like what?
The game would be too long if everything's reviewable. I mean, I don't know. They could challenge for everything at any time. They only get so many challenges, right? Like one or two.
No, they get one. I think they should get two.
Okay.
And
I can live with two.
Get two, and then you should be able to you should have an eye in the sky type situation, like the NFL has done the last couple of years, where they have the person that comes in quickly and says, no, that's the wrong. Right then, in that situation right there has to be somebody who is watching it that comes in real quickly and just says, no, this is what it is. Buzzes them. They do that. They started doing that the last couple of years in the NFL, and I love it. I think it's a great addition to the replay system.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be bad. You know me, I'm more of a traditionalist. I don't have a problem with human error.
The New York Jets have made their first 3 draft picks. In the first round, they take right tackle Armand Membou. Is it Membou or Membo? Do you know?
Membou is what I've heard.
Membou. Yeah, I read it a lot more, especially with the Knick game being on yesterday. I wasn't listening, so I feel like I read his name a lot more than I hear it. But Membou out of Missouri, he did not allow a sack or a pressure at all last season. He's a freak athlete. He plays violent. He's exactly the guy that I wanted the Jets to take. As I always say, me, I like taking offensive line in the first round. You don't take a tight end in the first round, but you do take a tight end in the second round, and they took tight end Mason Taylor out of LSU. Scouting report that I have from James Steffes, our senior Southern correspondent, who watched him quite a few times last year. And this man is also a Carolina Panthers fan. So therefore, this comparison really holds weight. He said he's Greg Olsen 2.0. He can play every part of the tight end position and scale from being a blocker to making tough catches over the middle, catching short passes, and catching the mid to deep seam. Very highly touted. I'm not super familiar with him. As I've said before, I'm not the biggest college football fan, but the fact that he set the record for catches as a tight end at LSU, a team that pumps out receivers, though usually the wide out version, hey, he looks like I watched the highlight reel. He looks pretty good. Looks like he's a guy that can help. And, hopefully he can be a guy who can be a real threat, especially with us losing Conklin and, Ruckert not really showing to be much of a down the field threat at all thus far.
No, I like him. A little bit. I'd seen some clips on him before actually the draft, with the whole Jason Taylor reference, and
yes, he is the nephew of Jason Taylor.
No,
he is the
son of Jason Taylor.
No, this is what you said before.
Mason.
So Zach Thomas is his Zach Thomas is his uncle. Okay, yes. Jason Taylor is married to Zach Thomas's sister. Correct.
Right.
Got it.
Right. So he's got the good NFL DNA. I'm glad to hear about him. And then who's this defensive back?
So we just took a defensive back out of Florida State, and his name is Azariah Thomas. Okay. What I like about him is he's 6'1", 197 with 4.58 speed. They say he was an absolute standout over there, and he plays that type of physical ball, making him on the other side of Sauce Gardner if he ends up being the starting corner. I on paper I like it. I don't know much about him, but hopefully Muji knows what the fuck he's doing.
FSU has characteristically put out good D-backs.
Jalen Ramsey and Deion Sanders, to name a few.
Right. I love Terrell Buckley. I read I like the fact that he's 6'1", the height, and somebody who can clearly, if he's that fast and he's got that height and he's, that heralded, he's clearly got good hips.
And he's 200 pounds. He's 200 pounds. And he also, size. Real quick, I'm reading through the article real quick. He had 52 tackles last year too.
This is what I'm saying, Nick. Maybe it could spur your man Sauce to, get a little more, little more, little smash mouth, which is what we need from Sauce. But I think Aaron Glenn's
you're never gonna see
instill that in him anyway. Well, Sauce is going to be better. He's going to be better.
I'd like him to be a better tackler. I'd like him to be a better tackler.
Couldn't be worse.
Okay? Yes. You know what? Last year, the second half of the season, I thought that he tackled a little bit better than he did the previous season in the first half of the season. I did feel that way.
He's very good at dragging people or hanging on for the ride.
He's a bad tackler. He's not good at it. It's not his strong suit. Neither was Deion Sanders.
Oh no, you're right. But Deion Sanders was Deion Sanders, bro. Come on, stop it. It's awesome.
Yeah. As always with the draft, it's a bunch of questions. We're looking at having a really good young offensive line.
Was Shedeur Sanders drafted in the second round?
I'm looking at it right now. Still not drafted. And actually, Milroe got drafted to the Seahawks. Shedeur is still on the board.
Milroe and Shook got drafted before him. And I
didn't know this guy Shook got drafted too.
Yeah, he got drafted early by New Orleans. New Orleans. Listen, Nick.
Now, what's going on? Okay, hold on. I want to talk about the Jets a little bit, and then I want to talk about Shedeur. Okay, because I want to talk about that specifically. I love what we're doing with the offensive line. A young offensive line. Some people are saying, especially if this guy Armand can be a real impact player, that we have one of the better offensive lines maybe in the NFL. I think that Justin Fields has never had that situation before, and that could mean a lot for him. And my thing is this:
play together first.
I've never ever, listen, all of it is all speculation at this point. Right. But I've never been like, that team sucks, but they got one of the best offensive lines in football.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if we can just get that part right, and then we're also able to, get the most out of Justin Fields, maybe we got something. And you know what I thought about that I hadn't thought about before? Aaron Glenn, he saw Jared Goff, a guy who was much maligned, who he comes over to Detroit, and they're able to put the team and the things around him. And now all of a sudden, this guy is able to level up and end up being, a guy who was in the MVP conversation at one point. I know there's definitely some Detroit fans who feel like he's still the problem and they need something else, but I think he's a solid quarterback. Listen, I thought he was solid when he was over with the Rams, but if Justin, I'm sure he's thinking, hey, if we can put the right things around this guy, and again, I like a weapon here and there. I like a defensive guy, offensive lineman. It's always where it's at. You get a chance to get this guy who many people thought was the best offensive lineman in the draft at pick number 7. You got to do it.
People like in Detroit who are foolish enough to be saying stuff like "get rid of Jared Goff" or upset with Jared Goff have not lived through the quarterback purgatory we've lived through for the last however many years.
Yep.
So that's just stupid. And I think that they're doing the right thing. They're building inside out. The tight end, like I said, is big because you need a good tight end, Nick, who can catch a pass, but who can also be the seal at that end of that line for a running game. We're constantly getting beaten on the running game because we're getting beaten around the edge all the time. We need an edge of our running game right there, and for it to be a tight end, so that you don't necessarily have to put in an extra lineman there, where the defense now knows that no one's going out. Okay, so they can load up because they know these guys with the number 70 and up are not running out on patterns. So come on, it's a big deal to have a legitimate tight end. And for some reason, I don't believe Ruckert has turned into that. While we thought, I don't know why, but I thought he would be a decent blocking tight end, but it doesn't seem like he's been that much either, right? I mean, I don't know, but he just doesn't he seems to be underwhelming.
Are you talking about Ruckert?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he also listen, he's another guy who he's now getting reunited with his college quarterback. So maybe that can help him unlock something. But we love the fact he's a local guy, grew up a Jets fan, but no, he hasn't shown a lot. But also you got to wonder sometimes about the Jets in these last few years, especially with some of the coordinators that we've had.
Right,
and have we been, developing these guys? And then also, listen, man, as we both know, every position outside of the offensive line, when that's not right, it's hard to look good. And so
right.
I don't listen. There's a lot of different things, but we will definitely, hopefully, see some more action and some more, involvement from the tight end moving forward. I definitely going to be a run-heavy team. And one thing about this guy, because of his pedigree, when it comes to Mason Taylor, is that he does things the right way. There's no way that you grow up with that dad and that uncle and you don't just, do things the right way and understand how to play ball. So I'm hoping that, he's able to make an impact year one, as, so lately some tight ends do. It used to be tight ends didn't typically do that. Recently, we've seen a couple examples of guys doing that, and hopefully he's that guy.
And I saw a picture of him earlier when he was a little boy at a Jet game with Jet face paint on and a Jet jersey on, the whole deal. Let's go.
When Jason Taylor was
when his dad played for the Jets.
Yeah. He was in the Jets for that 1 year. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jason Taylor also had some not so nice things to say about the Jets after that, but we'll all that we'll push aside. All right, give it to me, man. What do you think about this Shedeur slide, man?
Well, I mean, some of it is maybe that guys don't like his brashness and so forth. And that to me is stupid. Anybody who's making a decision based on that is idiotic. I have a hard time believing that NFL teams are making decisions based on the fact that they don't want to deal with Dion and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he's become a very good coach in his own right. I don't think that's the issue, because I think if he was chosen by a team, I think Dion would be all in supporting his son. And maybe somebody thinks like he might undermine it by saying that. I really don't. I don't think Dion would really do that. Number 3 or whatever I'm up to. But then I do hear a lot of people talking, Nick, and I've heard a lot of people, different guys talking right before the draft, saying that, listen, you had one camp of guys saying, hey, this guy is a talent. You got to think of the pedigree. You got to think about how tough he is. You got to think about this. You got to think his completion percentage. But then you got many people who say, listen, the guy threw mostly screens. He's got a lot of people say his footwork is really poor, really poor. And a lot of what he does that you saw him doing well, a lot of guys say was him going off script, constantly off script. With Shermer as his offensive coordinator. Nick, this is going to be incredibly fascinating going forward. I've heard too many guys who I think I respect their opinion say totally opposite things about this guy. So I don't know what to think, because I like Shedeur when I watched him play. He looked exciting. He looked like all of that. But as we know, Nick, you can look good in football, and when you get to the pros, it's a whole different game, man. It's a whole different ball of wax. So, I'm starting to believe that maybe the guys, because I have a hard time believing a lot of these teams are passing up on this guy in the second round because of some feelings or wearing too much bling. Or come on, all of these guys are wearing bling. What are we talking about? I can't believe that.
Man, it's a tough one for me because, okay, so first and foremost, if you don't take this guy and believe that if you don't take him as like an heir apparent, you know what I mean? Like if you don't take him as a guy who you say, okay, we have like what the Giants did in taking Jackson Dart. They're basically saying that this guy is our quarterback of the future, and we have a couple bridge guys, and they're hoping that Jackson Dart can be playing by next year, the year after that, right? Not this coming year, but the subsequent year, or year 2 or year 3. And if you take Shedeur and you take him and you have a guy who's somewhat established who you like, now you almost can't take Shedeur in that situation, because him being the backup is now just going to create so much noise that I can understand why as an NFL team maybe you don't want to do that. People talk about his footwork not being great, but then at the same time, they also talk about his accuracy being pretty good. People talk about his arm strength not being that great, but he's got extreme toughness, and he's, been a winner, relatively speaking, wherever he's been, and obviously the pedigree. But then some people on the flip side say, yeah, but do you want to deal with Dion? The thing that bothers me about this entire situation is that we hear about the brashness. We have an NFL GM just last week come out, not just like somebody, an NFL GM, unnamed, comes out and says, the most entitled interview I've ever seen. And I really start to wonder when it comes to him. People online are gonna kill me for this, because they say, oh, you make everything about race. But I really wonder in this situation, if everything was the same except for the hue of his skin, if he would get all of these same labels. And if it's a thing where if you are this particular guy and you want to be brash, then you also need to do it humbly. Even if you want to be confident, you need to do it humbly, and you should be happy for the opportunity and all these other things. And maybe he doesn't come off that way in interviews. And you know what? Honestly, I'm leaning against that. I don't think that's the case. I don't think because at the end of the first overall pick is a black quarterback. And also, a guy like a Johnny Manziel, though he did have some people who were like, oh, look at his moxie, he did have some other people who were looking at it and being like, this guy's kind of an asshole. So there is that. So I think he's absolutely a first round talent. I think whatever team gets him is going to get a steal. I think that this kid has showed over and over again that he's up to a challenge. I mean, he went to fucking Jackson State. And I think that he is going to end up being a very good starting quarterback in this league. And that's just from the eye test, what I saw. And I am in no way, shape, or form some great, college quarterback evaluator. But at the end of the day, man, I think it's really weird when you have a guy who at one point at the beginning of the season, he was the consensus number 1 or 2 pick between him and Travis Hunter. Many people were saying that, but before the season started. And then he has a tough season with a tough offensive line. And as we've said, it is almost impossible to be successful and look good with a bad offensive line. But then in addition to that, he comes out and he shows a lot of things that you would think would be something that you want in your starting quarterback. I think it's crazy for this guy to fall from that to even a couple weeks ago, he was like a consensus top 10 pick. And now all of a sudden we're in the 3rd round and he's still on the board.
Something's gotten out about him, Nick, that has a lot of people doubting. Who knows? We don't know, and we may never know. But something's gotten out about him that's made a lot of people step back and, have pause. And you see, I just have a hard time believing that, first of all, I don't believe that NFL owners or GMs would be part of some collusion or edict if they thought this guy was good enough. No way.
Okay, but I thought you were just gonna say, Colin Kaepernick. That was a clear
right. But again, Nick, yeah, I agree. And Colin Kaepernick was
one of the best 60 quarterbacks in the NFL. He was one of the best 60 quarterbacks in the NFL in the world. So yes, because he couldn't even get a backup job.
Okay, right. He couldn't even get a backup job. But it's easy to say it's much easier to say. I mean, listen, if Colin Kaepernick was a good enough talent, he would have gotten a job. He wasn't starting quarterback quality, Nick. But then again, that was a lot more charged. That was a lot more charged than anything having to do with Shedeur. Shedeur hasn't done anything, I don't think, that would rise to that sort of, whoa, this guy's radioactive, even though we, of course, agree that what Colin Kaepernick did was not radioactive. Anyway, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But something about this guy has made people, and again, Nick, I don't think this is all. I have a hard time believing that all these NFL GMs would think that this guy has division round one talent and would just stay away from this guy altogether. Somebody would say, fuck all the rest of y'all. I'm drafting this dude with the 3rd pick in the 2nd round. Or I'm drafting this dude with the 10th pick in the 2nd round. I don't give a shit what all y'all got to say. But clearly a lot of them got this feeling now, and I don't know what it is, that this guy's not the guy. And, Nick, it's very annoying to us now. And see, now it's kind of like, if you take Shedeur now he almost becomes like a cause celeb, where everybody's going to want to see him play because they want to almost see him prove everybody wrong. And if you take him and he sucks, then be like, we told you he sucked. It's a shit show, Nick. It's distressing, and it's sad for him. I don't know, Nick. Do they want guys to come into those interviews more hungry seeming, because of which they're going to get less and less of in every sport now with NIL, right? These guys are coming out of college with, at the low end, they've made $1 million in college.
Guys been growing up with money. And I mean, before, for a long time, former, it was sons of, former players and just guys who come from money. That's been happening forever. There's been 102 picks made as of right now.
Right.
You can't tell me this guy's not top 102, especially at that primary position. It's extremely odd to me, man. It is extremely odd. Like I said, I'm not going to say that it has to do with his race. I'm not going to say that.
But the worse it gets, the more it seems like that's got to be a part. Or it's hard to explain.
It's hard. Exactly. It is very, very hard to explain how Shedeur Sanders, as we finish up round 4, is still on the board. I mean, some people predicted a slide. Nobody saw this coming.
And that's what I'm saying, man. I just, dude, having that camera at the house, were they doing that again tonight? I wonder.
Oh, I don't think so.
I doubt it.
I have to believe
stupid to do that again tonight, man.
Yes.
No way.
Absolutely.
No way. You got to do this in privacy now, man. And clearly, if you did it tonight, you ain't doing it again. Okay, so and then the other son's not going to get drafted. That's clear. Shiloh?
Yeah, no. He's not going to get drafted. He's not going to draft it. He's going to have to try to make a team, and I think he could end up, definitely getting on somebody's practice squad. He's a pretty good
undrafted free agent. Fuck around, Nick. Shedeur won't be an undrafted free agent. Shedeur might be the next Brock Purdy.
Yo, we at this point,
crazy.
Right? We at that point where you got to really take that as a possibility.
Wow.
Catch us every week on YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts. Please follow, like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button on all platforms. Really appreciate all the love. You can find us on all socials at Nic On Knicks. That's N-I-C on Knicks. Love you, big guy.
Love you, kid.
Yeah.